So we're going to talk about crowdfunding, and I'm going to talk fast, because there's a lot of stuff to talk about, and because everyone was having so much fun, we kind of kept going with the conversations. So we're going to go through a lot of material really quick. Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
All right, that's good. So I'm going to focus on, my background is manufacturing, right? And so that's my specialty, that's what I can talk about the most. Unfortunately, that's not, well, there's two really hard parts. Manufacturing and then selling/marketing. Those are the two big hiccups in hardware startups. I can certainly talk a lot about the manufacturing part. I'm going to give you what I've learned kind of in a secondary way from a lot of the marketing aspects. Fundamentally, crowdfunding is marketing. Right? And it's this new technology that's bright and shiny and all this other stuff. But, you know, everything about it is really marketing. It's marketing 101. It's basic marketing. Everything about crowdfunding that makes it work and work well are all of the same things that make marketing work and work well. So when you're thinking of your crowdfunding campaign, you need to think of it like a marketing campaign. Right? If you go take out an ad and try to sell a product on any platform, you need to do your research, you need to know your market, you need to do all of these things. And if you don't do all of those things for crowdfunding, if you just think, oh, it's this great new technology and I just put up a video and everything goes great, then it's totally not going to work. There's too much noise now, especially, that you have to get above the noise. You have to really find your market and you have to do it right. So all of these laws of marketing still apply, right? And this is basic marketing, right? That you need to know your demographics, right? What is the crowdfunding platform demographics? It's more men, it's more technology, and it's younger primarily. So, you know, recognize that. What are the psychographics of those users? What is your branding as you're going to present it? What is the messaging? All right, we just worked with a product that is totally revolutionary and super interesting, and it has so many benefits. And the guy that created it had this long list of benefits, and they were all pretty amazing. Cures PMS and migraines and all of these things. But it was so scientific in his messaging, nobody believed it, nobody got all the way down the page. The messaging was off. He needed, you know, when you're messaging, people will have like a 3-second attention span these days, right? If you can't get their interest and pull them in with a single message quickly, you're probably going to lose them. So be really clear with your value proposition, with the problem you're solving. Get your branding and messaging right. Right? Know your target market. Know the marketing channels to develop your email list and other things. You know, find your target market and attract them. Know how you're going to promote your campaign and think about your pricing strategy. And, you know, this is all deep stuff. We could go all night about this stuff, but this is just marketing, right? Research marketing. Figure out how to market. Crowdfunding is marketing.
但是如果我要拍，
So pre-campaign. So, you know, if you talk to Indiegogo, if you talk to Kickstarter, the first question they're going to ask you mostly is how big is your list, right? How big is your email list? The most effective conversion tool today in marketing is direct emails. It's how many people that are a part of your target market do you have on your list that you can send an email, and that conversion is much higher than anything else you're going to do. It's going to be higher than paying for Facebook ads or paying for ad per click on Google or anything else. So tonight there's 35, 40 people here, right? That's 40 people, if you're good at it, that you can add to your email list, right? And they're kind of potential customers because they're all interested in hardware startups, right? They're all interested in developing products and at least will probably check out what you're trying to do. So think about it every day in every way, right? When you're going to prepare for crowdfunding, all always be working to build this email list because it's not easy. And if you're not really focused on it and not really working at it, it's going to be too slow to get there. You know, you need 2,000 to 10,000 emails depending on your price point and how focused those emails are to have a good chance of making a good campaign. Campaigns are very much about momentum, right? It's a snowball. And if you start with a tiny snowball, it's not going to build up to very much. If you start with a good one, it can grow very, very quickly and build up into something massive. So this is really the beginning of your snowball, is how big is your email list, how targeted is it, right? So you can do this through networking tonight, for example. You can do it through newsletters and reaching out and trying to build that online, social media, obviously. Influencers are key, right? Look at who are the influencers. Make great content, especially if you can provide a good video or something quirky or fun or interesting to talk about, right? So influencers need you in some ways just as much as you need them, as long as you can provide what they need, which is good content. Look for partners, competitors. Look at competitors, Look at Ash and I, we're pretty strong competitors. We're like almost direct competitors, but we work together and we found a great relationship to help each other out. And actually by working together, we've had all kinds of opportunity. But if we weren't open to that, we wouldn't have had this opportunity together. So you really, and to be honest, actually, I think nowadays most of my best customers come from my competitors. Seems like a crazy thing to say. But sometimes it's just a better fit. And your competitors actually know how to vet your customers better than anybody else you work with, right? So they can actually send you good ones, and you can send them back when it makes sense. So think about all the potential partners that you can work with. And think about what are the promotions you can do? What can you give away? What can you get people excited about? So that's kind of building your email list. Pre-campaign, the other thing that you really need to do well is to understand your costs. And when I talk about costs, I mean landed costs, right? I mean the final cost, not the cost from the factory, not a rough quote from somebody exactly. I mean, it's going to be a bit rough, certainly always, but you want to think of all the costs down the way because your packaging, your duties, your certifications, some of these things that are not directly related to the manufacturer costs they're going to add up to 20, 30, 35% maybe of your total cost. Right? So what are some of those things? So finalizing the design, right? A lot of times when you get into crowdfunding, you might have a 3D model, you might not have the electrical engineering done completely, so you might have some electrical engineering work to be done. But what is almost always missing is design for manufacturing. Unless you have a pretty complete early stage design done, you can't even get started on the design for manufacturing. So understand that there's going to be a cost there. It's real, it's going to take some time and money. Figure out with a partner how much that's going to be. Manufacturing is the thing that everybody thinks about, and usually it's getting quotes from factory, but what are the tooling costs, right? And especially what are the packaging costs? Tooling, depending on how many you're going to start with, there's different kinds of tools you can make, right? You can make maybe 50 units or 100 units with an RTD tool. You can make 500 or 1,000 maybe with an aluminum tool. And then more you need a soft steel tool or a hard steel tool. These are all different options and they can all affect your cost to get to market. Packaging is probably the one that gets overlooked the most. As a rough rule of thumb, packaging is going to be around 10% of your cost of goods. It's pretty significant. And it can be hard to cut down. If you start going cheap, your product starts looking cheap. And if anything, you probably want to put more into your packaging than the average company, because that usually comes back in sales. Understand shipping. a big common mistake that I think people are getting better at now, but is, wow, hey, I've got this product, I'm going to sell it everywhere in the world, free shipping, holy moly, that shipping cost me $50 that ship to Europe, and my product only costs $35. So, wow, you're stuck, right? There's nothing you can do. So get the quotes for shipping wherever you're going to offer that shipping, make sure that you cover that cost. Customers now understand that better, so you can say some fixed costs. Hey, it's going to be $50 to ship internationally if your focus is the U.S. or somewhere else. You have a kind of a target country, and you can say outside of that it's going to be some set fee. Duties. So the way that you can figure out duties is you need to understand your harmonized tariff schedule. Right? Every product has an associated HTS number. Once you know that number, you can basically look up what the duties will be in whichever country you're shipping to. Every country kind of has its own codes to some respect, but they're often related. So if you know the code in China, it'll often be related to a similar code in the US. And if you're speaking that language, it's much easier to look up. If you're working with a freight forwarder or a customs broker, which you should be doing to get your shipping costs, those guys are the experts, right? And if you don't know your HTS number, you can ask them. If you can get them excited enough about your product, they should be able to do some research around that.
You mentioned HTS or HTS?
HTS, Harmonized Tariff Schedule.
There's also an HS code.
That's another, it's the same thing.
It's kind of the same thing, right?
It's a short term.
And
Yeah,
so
there's.
this is mainly used in the US, I guess, and it's pretty much used everywhere else.
Yeah. Same thing, basically. So certifications, some of the big ones, if you're going to be plugged in, then you are going to need UL, some more significant kinds of certifications. You at least know what they are, right? If you're going to be selling something that people eat off of or involves food, you have first food grade certifications. Obviously, medical has its own huge ball of wax certifications. Toys are really unique that way. Automotive is pretty unique that way. So understand what the demands of your product are. Third-party testing labs can be a really good way to get that information if you're not sure. Lead time. So this is something that I throw this up there because a lot of people don't really, a lot of startups don't understand the process very well. This is kind of a good slide to understand how it works. So once you get funded, after you have a complete engineering package signed and delivered to the factory. All right, this means product requirements document, complete bill of materials, 3D files, technical files. This is the rough lead time that you're going to be working with if things go well. All right, so you're going to really want to make a pre-production prototype. Right, whatever prototype you have made yourself with 3D printing or some of the common technologies, it is not going to be done as close to manufacturing as it could be. And if you're going to go spend $50,000, $100,000, or $200,000 to make your first batch of products, including your tooling, you're going to want to take this time to make sure that you've got things figured out at least as much as you can with a small budget. Right? A pre-production prototype might be $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, and it's on that order of magnitude. And then production is 10 times, 20, 30 times more. So you can save a lot of headache by making sure you make a pre-production prototype through your factory. This gives your factory a lot of time to digest the problem, right? The design, the user interface. There have been designs where they didn't have in the design a way to turn the electronic product on or off. And the startup assumes that the factory knows that the product has to be turned on or off because it's an electronic product. And the factory assumes that the startup knows that if they want something turned on or off, they need to provide a button manufacturing with that miscommunication, you're in big trouble. Alright, so take that time, make that pre-production prototype. You're gonna both learn a lot about your product and the process in that time, and it's gonna speed everything else up in this process. So you're not even really gonna lose much time at the end of the day. So you make that. This is assuming our clients mostly in the US, so we ship it to the US. They take some time to review it, to test with their customers. They give us approval. It takes about 2 weeks. You do tooling. Tooling can be done in 25 days with modifications. 45 to 60 days. Maybe there's a little bit of extra leeway in there, but not too much. Oftentimes you're waiting in the queue for some time. And then maybe there are some things that were not foreseen, so it takes a little bit longer. So, it's 45, 60 days for tooling is fairly safe. First production run. So assuming if you have a 12, 16-week electronic component, that you're ordering it while you're making the tooling, and you're solving that problem already, then your first production run, seems like they often take about 30 days. And it seems like it hardly matters if it's clothing or if it's electronics, at least in my experience. But then you have hiccups, right? You can kind of produce in that amount of time, but then things don't quite work the way that you were expecting, and some things need to be reworked, and testing procedures need to be updated, and things happen. So, 45 days is, if things go well, you can hopefully get your first run done in that time. The troubleshooting QC, I guess I've kind of added that in there too. Again, if things go roughly well, this is going to be the time frame. All of this can explode, right? All of this can go wrong. So adding a few days in these things, but if they go well, they can take less time. If they don't go well, they can really take much longer. If you're shipping on the water from here to the US, it's about 30 days, everything included, door to door, and then receipt in the warehouse, and then shipping out in another 7 days, right? So if things go pretty well, you're looking about 7 months. Right? So when you're making your promises to your backers, if you're less than 7 months, you better have a really good plan for how you're going to get there, right? And your backers, I think, everyone wants their product quickly. But the community on crowdfunding is a very different community, right? These are people that want to support new products, they want to support new startups. They're going to be a lot more flexible as long as you're kind of meeting their expectations. As soon as you promise them 3 months and you're 4 months late, they're going to start to get really antsy and cause you a lot of problems. So you're much better off giving yourself a little bit of time and at least understanding this process very well to make your life easier. Any questions on this real quick?
Should I at least another 7 months as a backup period to this period?
If you want to be realistic, that's not a bad idea.
Do you build in the legal stuff like patenting and contracts with manufacturers, all that stuff? Do it at the same time or after?
So patents are totally separate, right? That's complex and a little bit beyond the scope of this talk, but one thing about patents is when you make things public, they become less patentable. Right? So you need to be careful if you're going to make all your secret sauce public and you still want to go out and get a patent. You need to have that process kind of in place. You can always get a provisional patent, which is very powerful actually, because it's actually in some ways more powerful than an actual patent, because companies can't see what is inside a provisional patent. It's a black box. Even the patent office doesn't open it. So it
Only 1 year.
keeps you safe for a year. So you have to apply for the patent within 1 year of the date of the provisional patent.
To get it, what's the wait?
There is none. Basically, it's just that you apply and they stamp, hey, I received this provisional patent on this date, and they put it in a box. Nobody even looks at it. And so it may not be patentable, right? with which you're applying for may not be patentable. It's cheap as a result. If it turns out that it is patentable, what it does is it backdates your patent to the initial filing date of the provisional patent.
Quick question. I mean, is there anything on the topic of IP to compare with manufacturers or does it show something cost extra created a product, like a master product, and she said she went on Amazon and found the exact same thing. She's, as far as she knows, selling it her source. Is there anything I can do to address that?
You know, legally, it's really tough. Legally, the best thing you can do is to get patents in the markets that you're going to, that are your main focus, right? And it doesn't really matter if people are making it in China if they can't compete with you in the market that you're selling it in, right? Almost no startup is going to compete in China for that exact reason. As soon as you launch the product, there's going to be 50 copycats, and they're all going to be a race to the bottom, right? So it's going to be really hard to take the China market itself. So if your factory is selling it in China, okay.
Oh, I mean, in the case with our manufacturer, kind of like fidget cube or something like that, where they have the manufacturer is selling basically their product, not like Alibaba. Is there any legal recourse
Well,
or anything to do with collaboration to look at?
yeah. So patents in the places where they're selling, right? I mean, if they're selling on Alibaba and people in the U.S. are buying it and shipping it to America, you have great recourse, right?
This doesn't make sense.
And actually, so a couple of really great things you can do. One is make sure you get a trademark for your product in China. This has become a lot more effective. It's only like 1,800 RMB or less. And if you're making a tool, you know, if you have a $10,000 tool with your logo in it, then that's pretty hard. You know, it's pretty hard to change, right? They've got to either be creative and make an insert mold or something, or make a whole new tool for $10,000, and they're going to be lazy and they just print them out, thinking you're not doing anything. Well, if you have a trademark, and then especially if you find out that they're making it, you can wait till they make $100,000 of product. You can wait till it gets to the port, and then you can start the process, and customs will take that $100,000 worth of product and destroy it. Now, all of the customers that are waiting for their product that they've promised delivery on
That's horrible.
don't get it, they lose all that money. You basically shut them down.
That's a nice way to play. And you can search them by English code, right? So you can identify what the company that you support.
If you know the factory information and the HS code, yes, you can kind of keep track of that. And so, yeah, there are databases out there that are searchable through that. So that's one. Fundamentally, IP is a total business strategy, though. You know, it's very rare that the patent itself is useful at all, to be honest. And it's really funny talking to most of the patent attorneys I talk to. Either they're really greedy and they're just like, okay, give me $50,000 and we need to do everything, or they're really honest and they're like, don't worry about anything. Wait till you make $1 million and then think about patents. And it's a funny play, but in my experience, it's also very true because most startups never get successful because they spent $40,000 on patents and they had no money on marketing, right? And there are so many things that you need to worry about besides protecting your idea. I mean, if you've got something really innovative with a clear need, a clear value proposition, a clear market, and it's a home run, make sure you get a patent, right? If you're going for VC funding, if you're going in that path, then absolutely, those are important. But, you know, most of our ideas are not that. Most of them are triples or doubles, or, you know, they're nice products that could make a really good lifestyle and millions of dollars, certainly. But, you know, unless you're going to make $10 million, unless your market is, you know, $10 million profit, done with your brand, right? With your marketing, with your product, with your customer service, with all the other things. And you can people spend a lot of money trying to get these patents, and they slow down a lot of the rest of their business because it's expensive and it takes a lot of time. So when you're getting started, it is tough to know how much to do on the manufacturing side. Right? You want to do as little as possible to cover yourself, but you want to cover yourself. Right? So really what we look at and how we try to support startups at this stage is feasibility. Right? Can it be made? Can you fulfill your promise? Right? And you're not going to know the exact price until you finish the design and you do design for manufacturing and you make a pre-production prototype and all of those things that you're doing crowdfunding to raise money to do, right? So you don't want to do that before crowdfunding as much as possible. But without doing all of that stuff with a good partner who knows the technology, they can give you at least a 95% confidence, and probably much better than you would have if not being a manufacturer yourself. So, what you really want to focus on are the materials, the processes, and the tolerances, right? And with the right partners, you give me a product, I can look at your product, I can tell you what it's made of, what the process is, and what the limitations of those processes are. And I don't need to know exactly all the details, right? I can tell you, is this roughly feasible? And I'll give an example. There was I was working with an accelerator. They'd already invested $100,000 in this product. They were looking at their industrial design. They came to us, okay, we've got this great marketing plan. The price point is going to be $40. Here's what it does. Here's everything that it needs to accomplish. And when you guys have finished our design, I look at it, and first thing I see is 10 atmospheres pressure waterproofness. Like, they hadn't fully finished the ID, and they want this thing to be like a dive watch, and they wanted to sell it for $45. That's not going to work. It is significant engineering to get something waterproof to that level, and they hadn't thought about it, right? So it's not that you need to necessarily know all the details, but working with the right partners, you can see things that will, they'll step out, right? There'll be red flags of like, hey, wait a second, stop everything. You can't promise this, right? Or if you're going to promise this, you're probably not going to make that at this amount, or if you are going to make it at that amount, show it to me, right? You better work on that engineering and figure it out. So, the way you figure that out is these things, right? Materials, processes, tolerance, and the capabilities of those processes. So if you're just making 3D prints in the lab and you want something to be compression, and you're going to make it out of silicone, but you don't know that that's compression molding, that's where you get in trouble, right? If you're making 3D prints and you then find out that it needs to be compression molding, you can find out how much that tool can cost and what the capabilities of compression molding are, and you get some expert opinions that know compression molding, hey, you're almost certainly going to be okay as long as they don't say, well, that's great. So, just understand those things, materials, processes, and capabilities and tolerance. The other thing too, like if they hadn't said that it was supposed to be 10 atmospheres, I wouldn't have seen that, right? If they had just said, oh, it's going to be a dive watch and blah, 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 if I hadn't been thinking about it, then, it wouldn't become a red flag. So when you're putting together your expectations to your manufacturing partner who's going to do this feasibility review, you need to make sure that you really clearly communicate to them everything in the same way that you're communicating to your backers. Right? That, hey, this is what I'm promising. Completely, can we do it in these processes? Finally, the last part of feasibility is price, right? And you might not be able to get a good rough quote in the beginning, and a lot of maybe that you think, wow, I can sell it for 100 and I can make it for 50. That's awesome. I can make $50 per product, you know. Well, you just cut yourself out of any possible retail deal because there's a 4x markup for retail. You are only going to sell online. How much money do you have to market to be able to sell 10,000 products online? That's going to take a pretty huge marketing budget, and that cuts out, you know, that 2x quite a bit. So reasonably for startups, you know, this is big companies compete at 4x, right? Big companies with great margin or with great economies of scale, right, compete at 4x. And you're not, as a startup, you should not be competing on price, right? So you should be at 5x, 6x. So if your manufacturing costs are $20, your price to your consumer really should be 100, 120. And the more, the better, right? The more that you have, the more money you can spend on marketing, the more you can give to retailers, the more you can spend on packaging, the more you can create a good customer experience. So, you know, don't try to be cheap. It's impossible. It's impossible to be cheap as a startup. If you can't sell it, I always basically tell, you know, our clients to be conservative, right? Use a 5x, use a 6x, because, you know, the worst thing that happens, you don't get funded, right? That is actually much, much better than being barely funded and spending the next 2 or 3 years of your life trying to make something out of nothing, something out of a product that was never really meant to succeed, right? It's better just not to make it. Make a few tweaks, figure out a new model. You can spend 6 months doing that, and then you can hit that goal and have a really successful company. If you fulfill your crowdfunding campaign in 2x or 3x, you just committed to 2 or 3 years of pain. So you got your pre-campaign already, you're going to launch, right? On launch day, what do? You need to get 30% of your project funded in the first 48 hours, right? This is the snowball, right? If you don't get that snowball going in the beginning, you don't get that whole time down the middle of it building up. There's significantly higher chance of success for campaigns that do reach this 30% goal in the beginning. Here are the tricks to get there. One, as I talked about earlier, get that big email list, right? You gotta have 2 to 10,000 and hopefully 20,000 or more, you know, people in your direct email blast campaign. One thing you can do is you can make a deal with a B2B partner, right? A partner that would give you cash money straight up. You're going to give Indiegogo or Kickstarter 10% of that for doing nothing, bastards. But that's going to show your market that you have traction, right? That this thing is going to fund, because just think of it from your own perspective, right? You love this product. It's cool. You know, you're a cyclist and it's a clean bottle and it's going to solve your mold problems. And you go on there and you're on there on the second day or the third day or the 10th day, and it's at 5% funded. Are you going to take the time to put in all your information and put in your credit card and, you know, give them your email address when you have almost no confidence that that product is going to be shipped to you? Like, no way. Right? So even if you could be a great potential buyer, you're not going to be, because you just don't think it's going to be shipped. You don't see the incentive, the upside. That's what you have to do. You have to get that 30% so that everybody that comes to that website, that comes to your page, says, oh, okay, this is probably going to be shipped to me. I'm going to take my 2 minutes and put in my info and promise my money, because I have a pretty good sense that it will get shipped to my door at some point. So you're trying to get over that hump. So, you know, if you have a retail customer or somebody that can sell 1,000 of them, If you can sell 1,000, great. Don't sell them directly. Wait till you have your campaign ready. You can set up special deals on Kickstarter and Indiegogo that nobody else sees. They get a code, they go through the back end. You make sure you time it on minute 1. You call them on the phone, like while you hit the launch button, they place the order. Within 2 minutes of you launching your campaign, bam, everybody else that comes to your site sees you're 5 or 10% funded, by the second minute of your campaign. And of course, the more B2B customers you can do, the larger orders, the better. First tactic. Second tactic, you've got a mom, you've got dad, what have you, you've got close family, you've got people that are going to buy the product, or you've got close friends, you've got people that are in your cycling group or what have you. Consider referrals, constantly engage with your community that has already purchased. And recognize the crowdfunding cycle, which goes something like this: lots of interaction, then was low value for a long time, and then you're going to get a bunch at the end. So it's basically 2 spikes at the beginning and the end. Don't worry if you're not getting a bunch in the middle, that's normal. You'll get a bunch at the end, make sure you try to leverage that. After the campaign, so manufacturing checklist, what you give your manufacturer as far as information is the quality that is going in is going to be directly related to the quality of your product coming out. The main things you want to provide is a good product requirements document, which is the overall expectations of your product in the market, the bill of materials, which identifies every component that you're going to have in your product, separate them from mechanical and electrical, technical files, 3D, 2D is really good for things like surface finish and tolerances. Very good to provide both where you can. Gerber files for electronics, and your prototype. Seeing something, all this other stuff is on paper, on the computer. It's very hard to visualize what the actual product is like. From that is, even with good engineering, prototypes can really help engineers to see how that all comes together. The channel strategy, look at B2B options. They can act as gatekeepers to end users. Customers will just suck your time. You can manage that by working with businesses. They can be teaching customers. These are usually bigger businesses know the customers much better than you do. They're doing a lot more analytics. They can tell you what is the customers are experiencing, how you need to improve your product. They'll give you larger orders, which can help you meet the minimum order requirements. That can keep cash out of your inventory because you place the order with the factory, that gets delivered. You're not keeping a bunch of your cash, trying to sell one-offs to individual buyers. It can simplify your operations significantly, which saves you a lot of time to do things like marketing and raise money and what you have. Adds weight to your brand. If someone sees your product selling in Target or another big store, they really believe in it. And it can actually help as part of the IP strategy, right? If you're the first into a major retailer, you're kind of the first one that had that product, right? Imagine if you had the idea, but you're selling online, and your copycat was the first one into Target. Who does the world think was the first one to have that product? It's not you. Look at it, expanding into online definitely as you finish. As soon as the day you finish your crowdfunding campaign, you should be selling pre-orders either through that platform or through your website or anywhere you can, right? You don't want to stop that sale. You spend a lot of time building that momentum. You have a great list. Keep pushing it, right? Get your product on Amazon and other affiliates immediately. Approaching retailers, this can go for a while. Find the right fit, right? Not all retailers. Don't just pick a retailer relationship because you can. They should be excited about your product. If they're not excited about your product, don't do it. They're going to rip you off. They're going to have horrible terms. Like, they really need to believe in your product. Know the packaging. The rules are basically 6 feet, 2 meters should catch your eye, get you to take a step closer. 1 meter, 3 feet should be kind of the next line of wording that tells you kind of what it does, that gets you to take one more step to pick up the packaging and to really figure out what it does. So there's 3 things your packaging needs to do, and it needs to work at all 3 of those different levels. You have to offer marketing support. A lot of people think the retailer will market your product. They will normally not do anything. You know, Best Buy, Target, they just provide you space. They want, in fact, they're going to expect you to do all of that. And if you don't go in with a good game plan about how you're going to sell your product and help them make money, they're not going to give you the opportunity to put their product, your product on their store. Make sure you back it up all with the data of those from your crowdfunding campaign. You just got a lot of data from that. Strongly consider using an agency. They're not cheap. Cheaper ones might be around $10,000 for a package. You know, more expensive can easily get up to $100,000. But they can be really good. They can make all the difference. When you're having these conversations, you better be ready to deliver, because the goal is to sell the product. The retailer will want to buy if they're interested. If you can't deliver, you just kind of piss them off, and unless you came in very honestly and let them know in the beginning, they might have hurt the relationship to do that. If they do offer you a deal, read every line, because they can have some really crazy terms in there. Often you have to buy the product back that doesn't sell. But there's some other crazy things that you really want to be careful about. Thanks so much. Appreciate your time.